Ladies and gentlemen, the NFL race has gotten very interesting. 4 teams left for a chance at going to the Super Bowl in New Orleans. AFC and NFC Conference Championships take place in a little less than a week. On this episode of the Kirby on Sports podcast, we will break down the AFC and NFC divisional round of the playoffs as things got very interesting. We have a lot to talk about. We're not going to waste any more time. That all comes your way next on episode 223 of the Kirby on Sports podcast. What up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm your host, Josh Kirby. Welcome back to another edition of the Kirby on Sports podcast, episode 223. Huge shout out to all of our sponsors, PM Plus Reserves, Shenandoah Primitives, Transformative Alignment Group, Barrett, Pest, and Termite Services, Mark Francis with Icon Real Estate, Shenandoah Music, Mark Lynch with Guild Mortgage, the Cider House on Piccadilly Street in Winchester, Virginia, and Don't Sleep Energy, the official energy drink sponsor of the Kirby on Sports podcast. You use promo code KOS podcast for 12% off your order every single time. That's on Amazon and don'tsleepenergy.com. What a wild weekend of football it was. We're going to break it all down here in a moment, but I can't do anything without first welcoming who will be discussing these games with me. We're going to have a fun time. Unfortunately, Dan cannot make it today. We wish him all the best. He's busy. He has some stuff going on. We wish you well, Dan. But the two-time reigning, defending Kirby on Sports PickEm champion, the Swiss Army knife, Carlos Martinez, and my friend, a weekend it was in the National Football League.
A weekend it was indeed, especially for you. Welcome to the Big Boys Club. Welcome to the Big Boys Club. Hell yeah. In terms of Dan, we are sorry you were kicked out of the Big Boys Club. Unfortunately, your team did not make it into the Big Boys Club. We miss you. We hope to see you soon, Dan. There's nothing serious that has happened to him. To our listeners, he just has prior engagements so we do not know when he will return to the pod. Hopefully for the Super Bowl he will be back. But yes, the two winners are here, baby. Let's go.
Who would have thought? Well, we're going to get to that in just a moment, but why not first talk about the first matchup on Saturday? The Chiefs win over the Houston Texans, and things got a little bit dicey early in the game. The
champ is here. The champs are here. The champs are here. Yes. The champions have made their triumphant return to the playoffs. All right, continue, Kirby.
Did you see early on that guy shoving the Texans defense?
I mean, they showed it on the broadcast, Kirby. Of course,
that was
saw it.
I'm like,
that was crazy.
That's an issue. That's an issue, man. Straight up, you can't be doing that.
Yeah, that was crazy. I don't understand.
I don't really know the storyline because I was sitting at B-Dubs watching the game.
I don't understand why it happened. Clearly, he was obviously frustrated of the big return, and then he was the one who made the tackle that caused the fumble, but then Samaje Perine fell on it. So you got to think he was frustrated of the fact that he thought he had made a game-changing play immediately off the bat, and then the ball wasn't recovered, and he was probably mad at something with the special teams coordinator, and gave us pretty much a guaranteed field goal for his personal foul of throwing his helmet off. And I don't think it was much so pushing the coach. It was more so he took his helmet off while he was still on the field.
Yeah, but I mean, this game sort of close. I mean, Houston.
Yeah, it was close. Yeah.
Oh, Houston had the advantage in total yards, but the Chiefs doing what they do best, they found a way. It got close there. The Texans.
Look, but okay. But this is the common misconception that has been permulating through the NFL circles these past couple of days of this whole thing of the total yards thing, right? That every team that won had less yards or something like that. Hold on, I got the stat right here. Or perhaps
and I'm not siding with that. I'm just stating they had more total yards, but I don't think altogether it was a complete game for the Texans.
Don't look at the total yards. You have to look at the red zone efficiency, because like at the end of the day, yeah, the Texans were moving the ball, but guess what? They weren't scoring, and
Absolutely.
they missed a few field goals. They had one block. They had their sole touchdown took them pretty much a whole quarter to to go score. So, and then for Kansas City, they were moving the ball, and we were getting short fields. So there's a story behind why the Texans did better than we did in terms of like getting more yards. But like, you have to look deeper into it to understand that, like, hey, like, just because you get more yards does not guarantee you're going to win. At the end of the day, you can go from the 20 to the 20, but then what happens, and that's 80 yards between that or something. No, 60 yards. So you can go from the 20 to the 20, but guess what? What happens within the 20 also counts too. And at the end of the day, they weren't getting it done.
Yeah, no, I agree there, but the Chiefs turned it on when they had to, and I will refer to a one Patrick Mahomes to Travis Kelce connection, as Patrick Mahomes is just on his way to the ground, and that's what the Chiefs need when it comes to playoff times, and they just heat up at the right time, and essentially that's what the Chiefs did in this football game to secure the victory. Just heating up at the right time, doing what needs to be done, and their playmakers stepping up. I think Travis Kelce had a pretty great game in my mind. I liked watching him compete, perform. He had a couple nice catches out there too. But I mean, the Chiefs, they're the number one seed for a reason. And I think they had a very good performance against the Texans.
Look, the Chiefs is the Chiefs, baby. This is what we do. I mean, Travis Kelce had 7 receptions, 117 yards, the 1 touchdown. He had that super long, I believe it was a 40-plus yard reception where he almost scored, and then, his stiff arm got knocked down, and he got tackled right before he got to the end zone. I mean, will I say this was a great performance? No, I can't say that. I think the Chiefs look very rusty on offense. I think they really struggled to find their footing. I mean, when you really look at that, break down the stats, the only three receivers really got any action. Travis Kelce was 7. Xavier Worthy had 5 receptions. Noah Gray had 3. Kareem Hunt had 1. But aside from that, Hollywood Brown didn't register a single reception. Of course, he did catch, well, I don't know. I don't know if he caught it or not. They said it was incomplete, but he had 1 target that would have been for a 40-yard gain, and that was called back. DeAndre Hopkins didn't do anything either, and Juju Smith-Schuster didn't. These guys didn't record a single stat. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the crazy thing about this is, I mean, the Chiefs came out, their offense did look rusty. You could tell they definitely had to knock some of that rust off. I mean, they've been essentially off since Christmas. So it was expected, and this was like the perfect opponent for them to come back to and like get the feel for the game again. And ultimately, I think that's maybe the scary thing about Kansas City right now is we still haven't seen them played their best ball yet. Their defense played exceptional today. We always got to shout out, my favorite defensive back, McDuffie. He was lights out. Getting Jalen Watson back to be that number 2 clearly made a huge difference. It just really shows what happens when he's out there, and not having him for a majority of the season. But getting him back just in time for the playoffs, it's going to be tremendous because it allows McDuffie to follow the number 1. And it just gives him the freedom knowing that Jalen Watson can take care of the other guy and we don't have to worry about stuff like that. And Karlaftis, man, the most underrated defensive lineman because he plays next to Chris Jones. But George Karlaftis, 3 sacks, was just an absolute game wrecker. He had, I believe, so he had 4 tackles, 3 sacks, and he just completely kicked ass. And it'll be interesting to see what happens here against Buffalo, obviously our arch nemesis. But for all these people that are, and I'm pretty sure you were going to probably bring this up, the whole referee controversy and everything like that, for everybody trying to blame, trying to think that the refs were the reason why the Chiefs won this game. You guys really need to grow up and stop. There
was one blown call.
I will kind of agree with it, but I just think, in all honesty, like at the end of the day, the Texans didn't have enough to win, and they were never going to win this game.
I'm not saying that it
at the same time. Well, hold on. And at the same time, like I said in the beginning, they had ample opportunities to score and they didn't score. Yep. They left points on the table. Kansas City got the points, and we also had egregious calls called on us. But again, because we're the dominant, successful team, and everybody all of a sudden wants to hate on us, even though, again, a few years ago we were the darling of the NFL. Everybody's just focused on what gets what calls we get instead of what gets called on us. So it's okay. We understand this comes with the territory of being a successful team. But I just feel like this whole narrative of the refs and everything has just gotten completely out of hand. And it's very annoying that it's the discourse instead of the fact that this team is actually like really good, and it's just your team's just not good enough to beat us.
Well, I will say that one call, I believe they called like unnecessary roughness because Mahomes was going down, but it looked like the 2 Texans players hit each other. But again, I'm not saying that goes into the outcome of the game.
Well, you got to think it's a bang bang play. Like we get to see that because we get the benefit of slow motion replay. I mean, think about what you're seeing on the field. You see 2 guys lunging at a guy who, granted, Mahomes does do that, and it's not just Mahomes. A lot of quarterbacks exploit this whole thing of sliding late and then getting that call. I mean, Taylor Heineke did that against the Eagles a few years ago. Where he goes down late and the guy's already kind of lunging, so he can't stop himself, and he gets the benefit of the call. It's what won you guys that game. So for everybody who's trying to, get on Mahomes for doing this, watch film of your quarterback. I guarantee you they've done it at one point or another.
Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, I don't really have much to add from the officiating side of things. I mean, some people are like, "Oh, the refs are on the Chiefs side." The ridiculous amount of memes with the refs in Kansas City.
It's really stupid in my opinion.
It's really different, but I don't see it that way. That's just me.
I just see it as just straight childish and jealousy that like your team's just not as good as ours, so you're trying to find an excuse as to why your team can't get past Kansas City. I mean, you got to think last year we didn't win like this. Like we didn't win. There was a lot of talk at some point of will the Chiefs even make the playoffs? So it's like for people to think that like it's always been this way. Like, granted, yes, we do get favorable calls. I will agree with that. The Chiefs do get a lot of favorable calls, but somebody put it to me this way: when this is how it goes in any major sport. the stars are going to get the good calls. Patrick Mahomes is the star of the league. He's going to get it. Josh Allen gets it. Lamar gets it. We can go to the NBA. LeBron has gotten so many calls that they might not call on anybody else, but because he's the star of the league, he's going to get it. It's just the difference being is that we're front and center in everybody's face right now because we're the gem of the NFL. So everybody likes to point at us. But then again, you look at, Buffalo, where literally last week, the ref is over there talking to Josh Allen, consoling him, telling him, hey, make sure you like there's no need to yell. It's like none of those refs do anything to like the relationship that the NFL fans think that the Chiefs have with the refs is actually what the Bills have with the refs, because they get babied every which way. Rules even get changed for them that didn't get changed for us. So I'm sick and tired of this narrative. It's very annoying. It's very immature. And it just shows that you don't watch ball. You don't know ball. So please get out of my face with that. Anybody that comes up to me and tries to, tell me, oh, it's the refs out there too. I will just like very blatantly roll my eyes at you and just not even acknowledge it. So, yeah.
But, I mean, other than that, the Chiefs stepped up when needed, made more plays than Houston. And obviously, Houston with those missed kicks didn't help leaving points on the board. And in the end, the Chiefs get the job done. And you know what that means, Carlos?
It's the 6th annual Arrowhead Invitational! Back in Kansas City. Back in Kansas City. We took it on the road to Baltimore last year. Love that place, but guess what? No need to go back there again. Let's bring it back home to the best fan base in the NFL, the loudest stadium in the NFL, and we know who our opponent is. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're going to talk about your opponent coming up in just a little bit, but the Chiefs get the win over the Texans, and when we return, a very exciting upset in the Motor City right here on the Kirby Sports Podcast. The upset, that is right. We'll be right back. For sports fans living in condominium and homeowners associations, as well as business professionals, when you need a reserve study, PM Plus Reserves has been in business since 1990. Their studies are accurate and easy to understand. Check them out when your association needs a study. www.pmplusreserves.com. You can also contact them at 703-803-8436. Once again, www.pmplusreserves.com. Is it finally time to upgrade your home's interior? How about with an authentic farm table made locally from recycled barnwood? Shenandoah Primitives, based right here in Winchester, Virginia, makes farm tables, benches, tables, coffee tables, and a long list of other items for your home decorating needs. At Shenandoah Primitives, function and style are combined for great furniture that will last generations. If you're interested in combining the industrial look of metal with wood, or considering something incredibly unique with a live edge, Shenandoah Primitives turns those ideas into reality. Thinking about a mirror, wine rack, or other accent piece for your home, Shenandoah Primitives can assist with that as well. As a local small business, Shenandoah Primitives is happy to work with each client for a custom design or schedule an appointment to come out and view current inventory. Local, high-quality, handmade items can be found at Shenandoah Primitives. Find us on Facebook and Instagram or visit us at www.shenandoahprimitives.com.
Winning sports teams thrive on alignment. Every player knows their role, trusts their teammates, and works toward one shared goal, winning. But let me ask you, what about your senior leadership team? Are they driving your business toward success? At Transformative Alignment Group, we help CEOs uncover and address the hidden drain on productivity caused by disengaged employees that cost companies millions annually. Transform your team. Transform your results. Visit tagalignment.com today. Don't settle for good when you can be amazing. That's tagalignment.com.
And we welcome you back to episode 223 of the Kirby on Sports podcast, recapping the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. The next matchup, the upset. Jeez. Where should we start?
Okay, hold on. Okay. Let me do this for you. Okay. Let me bring you in. Okay. Let me do you the honor. Okay. Our next game that we're going to talk about is one that is near and dear to Josh Kirby's heart, our founder and CEO, because what transpired Saturday night was absolutely, what's the word here? Transcendent for him. He has never felt this way before. He's never experienced this before. Commanders 45, the number 1 seeded Lions 31. Kirby, take it away.
Did you like that dogfight? That was a dogfight.
I mean, in all honesty, it was a dogfight for like.
It was a shootout. It was a
half.
dogfight. Woo!
For the first half, it definitely was, and then the second half, you guys just finally, you guys just went pedal to the metal and just completely blew them out of the water.
Here's one word for you in this game: turnovers.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. That was definitely the name of the game here. Jared Goff turned over a lot. Jaden Daniels, no turnovers.
Correct. And Tressway only punted one time. So the Commanders, they played.
That's the only time he's punted in the playoffs so far.
I believe so.
Because they didn't punt against Tampa. So they've only punted once.
That is correct. They've only punted once in the playoffs. So Tressway's just the primary holder for Zane Gonzalez, and he was on Grand Danny on 106.7 this afternoon. I was listening, and they're like, "Oh, you're not going to punt in the NFC Championship game," and joking around. Obviously, I'm like, that would be very, very interesting if Tressway did not punt in the NFC Championship game. Hearing the word NFC Championship game, that's surreal. Absolutely surreal, but we'll get to that. But the turnovers played a huge part. Quan Martin with that pick 6, Detroit with the fumble. Was it a fumble? Wait, I'm thinking of the. Was it? I think it was a bad snap. I'm trying to remember. Was there a fumble in this game? I believe
there was. Hold on. Yeah, one fumble by Detroit.
I forget who it was on and what the position was, but that was huge to get that fumble. And then Quan Martin with the pick 6. Jared Goff just overthrew his receiver. Then the Lions were driving to close out the half. Sanders still picks him off again. And closing out the game, did you see that trick play that Sanders still picked off again, like off his back foot, like going back? I saw a flag. I'm like, oh, this is going to get called back.
On the line, I don't know why Detroit went with Jameson Williams to throw a pass.
Yeah,
and you can't even blame Jameson Williams. Like, you really can't, because he's not a quarterback. So he doesn't know what exactly he's looking at. He just knows he's supposed to throw it to this guy. So he threw it to that guy, even though he was like triple covered.
And Sanders still picked it off. There was a flag. I'm like, oh, great. Illegal man downfield. Penalty decline, Washington football. You know that fourth down play where because Dan Quinn, they love to go for it on fourth down. So, the first fourth down always fails, but after that, they get it. But that fourth down in the red zone, they did. Detroit with 12 men on the field to give them a first down. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So the name of the game.
Brady immediately pointed that out on commentary.
Oh, yeah.
Immediately noticed. He was like, too many men on the field.
So Detroit wasn't able to do anything with that. Commanders scored off of that. But the name of the game was Detroit. They did not play a perfect game. Too many turnovers, not to discredit the amount of firepower they had. Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, but just the penalties and the turnovers really hurt the Detroit Lions, and the Commanders played a near perfect game. Their defense wasn't the best, but stepped up when needed. Jaden Daniels doing what he does best, and the hot target for Jaden Daniels is Zach Ertz, I think. Zach Ertz is playing very well right now. So,
Yep.
I mean, it was a good game. Was I expecting a game like this where the Commanders were going to lead for most of the game? No. You want to hear something funny?
The
Very
fact that
funny?
you immediately no, hold on. The fact that immediately after Detroit scores their first touchdown, you were like, we just gave them the ticket to the NFC Championship game. We were like, Kirby, the game just started. Relax, my guy. You guys haven't even had your first drive yet.
I know that, but still, that is Detroit, because looking at Detroit, they have a lot of weapons.
Yeah,
So,
but Kirby, but we knew this going into the game, is that their defense suffered so many injuries, and it finally caught up to them, where they finally faced a team that has been slowly ascending. I said you guys plateaued much earlier in the season. Clearly I was wrong. Okay, clearly I was wrong, because I think what happened definitely was it was clear as day that Jaden Daniels was hurt during that middle part of the season. And then he finally got healthy, and now you see that you guys are playing once again the way you guys played at the beginning of the season. So the way I see it is that the beginning of the year was not a fluke. The way all the games you won and everything, it was not a fluke. You guys were really just that good. And then Jaden gets hurt, and there was other injuries that happened also. Jaden gets healthy, and now you guys are able to run the offense the way you guys used to be able to. And on top of that, like, Jaden Daniels is just so poised and composed. He really, really, really impressed me in this game in a way that, like, I was like, dude, everybody's saying it. There's no way this guy's a rookie. He's just like, I mean, he's facing, like, he's got like 3 men coming at him from Detroit's defense blitzing, and he held it just long enough, and he never panicked, just stayed calm, found the open man, threw it quickly. It was incredible how he just had all the answers, and it just seemed like no matter what Detroit tried, they couldn't figure it out.
yeah, I mean, jeez. I mean, Jaden, just looking at him on the sidelines, it's like, what's he thinking? Not really any emotion. I mean, until after the game, obviously, but
But I
just
think that's the great thing about him. I think that's the great thing about him, is that, like, he's just so unfazed. Like, again, he went to it's been 2 road games. You go into Detroit, which is rocking, because they really believed this was going to be their year. They really believed it. And he was not fazed by the crowd. He was not fazed by the pressure, by the blitz, by anything Detroit threw at him. He did not care. He was prepared. He knew the answers to the test before the test was even given. And he just absolutely, he stunned it on them like he did. Like he said, all right, cool. He has done everything that everybody thought Caleb Williams was going to do this season, which is absolutely incredible. I mean, we both, you obviously more so because you as a Commanders fan, but we were both around for that RG3 era. This is different than the RG3 era.
Different.
Like, I don't know. This is a lot different in the sense of, like, I don't know. There's just something about this kid that that RG3 did not have, that, like, you were just like, yeah, this kid's got it for sure.
Well, this goes back to the Commanders have Ron Rivera last year and Josh Harris giving him one last year. Obviously, that's not the case. Ron Rivera leaves, and it's time for Josh Harris to implement what he wants for the Washington Commanders. New leadership, excuse me. So Harris implements new leadership, a new president coming in next year. So Jason Wright on that transitional. So next year, new president, but looking at this year, Lance Newmark, the assistant GM, coming from Detroit. Adam Peters coming from San Francisco. You put in the right pieces at the right time. You find Dan Quinn, who some people were like, oh, this wasn't our first choice. Everybody wanted Ben Johnson. You hear the backstory on Ben Johnson? That Adam Peters turned his plan around because Ben Johnson wanted to work with Sam Howell, but Adam Peters was dead set on drafting a quarterback. So
I did not know the
out,
story.
it just came out a couple days ago.
Yeah, I didn't see it. But on the Dan Quinn front, I mean, it was a smart decision to bring him in. I mean, look, everybody gives him flack for the 28-3 debacle in the Super Bowl. Rightfully so. How do you blow a lead like that? You know, but then obviously the way things went after that in Atlanta, it just didn't end well. But again, when you suffer such a traumatizing loss like that, you know, and you have one of the most epic collapses in Super Bowl or not even just Super Bowl, NFL history, you know, it's just not going to be the same after that. And what was desperately needed was some change. But you saw Dan Quinn had success in Seattle, he had success in Atlanta, and then he had success changing the culture of that Dallas defense. Think about what Dallas's defense was doing before Dan Quinn got there. That Mike Nolan-led defense in 2020 was abysmal. They were terrible. Dan Quinn comes in, turns it right around on the dime. He is a culture setter, and he's a phenomenal coach. He is the best of both worlds. And that's why I thought that was a solid pick by the Commander. It wasn't the sexy pick. It wasn't the one that was going to get everybody to turn their heads, but it was the correct pick because this is a guy who knows how to build a culture and build a program of guys that are going to do everything to win for each other. Because you saw it with the culture of the Dallas defense. That Dallas defense wanted to play for each other and they wanted to play for him. It's the same thing that you're seeing there in Washington. They want to play for each other and win for each other. And I think that is exactly what the Commanders needed. Granted, I didn't think they would get this far, honestly. I thought they were a year out before they were ever going to make some noise. But the fact that you guys are already in the NFC Championship game, it's crazy.
So something else too. Josh Harris in talking to media after games. Josh Harris, Magic Johnson. It's great that all the success is there, but they're just letting everybody in charge of football deal with it. And he's taking a step back. That's the way it should be. Here's a stat. Adam Peters has now been to 3 straight NFC Championship games in 5 out of the last 6. That's impressive. So there's a lot of hope for the future going towards Washington. However you look at this, nobody thought that the Commanders were going to be in this spot at the beginning of the season.
Nobody thought you guys were going to make the playoffs, let alone the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, nobody thought. And guess where they are now? The fan base is going crazy. Everybody in the DMV is excited, riding high. I mean,
I just really hope that, you know, because this is a great ride for you guys. And honestly, again, you weren't even alive the last time they were this far.
Yeah.
So, like, this is your first experience with this. I wasn't even alive when they last made the NFC Championship game. Hilariously, it was against the Lions that they beat. So that's the funny part about it is history has come full circle. But except that was to go to the Super Bowl. This time, this was just to go to the conference championship game. But I will say this. I just hope that should this be the end of the line, right? Let's say you guys don't win. I just hope that you guys put on an epic performance and that at least sends you guys hopeful for next season. And this isn't, you know, what happened 2 years ago when San Francisco went up to Philly and Brock Purdy gets knocked out first play of the game. And it was just an utter blowout and just completely depressing and boring game to watch. No, we want a battle between these two. And also, I mentioned this last week. I don't know if I mentioned it on the pod, but I mentioned it to you guys, at least. This is going to be only the second time you guys have faced the Eagles in the playoffs. Ever. So this is going to be a matchup of epic proportions. they're only a few hours drive up the road from DC. They're in Philly. Could Commanders fans possibly invade? Probably not. But could there be a good amount of Commanders fans there? Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see. We all know how Philly fans kind of operate. So that's going to be interesting in that regard. But I mean, again, going back, and also it's been so long that the Commanders broke like one of the longest droughts for not reaching the NFC Championship game, which is huge. So they're just checking off all these boxes left and right, and there's a lot of hope. And again, I will mention they are still playing with house money because nobody projected the Commanders would be in
nobody
this
had you guys going this far. So even if this is the end of the line, it'll still be this goes down as one of the best seasons you guys have had in years. But I told you off air, I believe you guys have a legitimate shot of winning this game. I really do. You guys really could. It's hard because you want to be tentative about it, right? You don't want to get your hopes up, because especially for you guys, because you guys have never been in this position, but it's okay to feel optimistic and hopeful that you guys can win this game, because I think you guys can. I really do. Is it going to be tough? Yes. I mean, you're going into Philly, but I told you, Philly doesn't, we'll talk about them next. Philly doesn't look the best, man. And with Jalen getting hurt there in that game, that could spell good news for you guys. So, fantastic performance here against Detroit. It's to talk more about Detroit. My heart does break for that city and for that fan base, man. They really thought this was their year. As a person who has experienced that heartbreak of thinking this team is actually going to do something, with my many escapades with the Dallas Cowboys before I rescinded my fandom. I know exactly how they feel. It's heart-wrenching, it's heartbreaking, it's frustrating. You just don't understand why, they keep doing this, to you. And is the window closed for them? I don't know. I mean, they already lost, it just came out today that Chicago has hired Ben Johnson as their head coach. The thought
Aaron
around
Glenn
the league is that Aaron Glenn is expected to leave. Yeah, he's expected to leave. So they're going to lose their coordinators, and everybody knows Dan Campbell. Sorry, I totally blanked on his name for a second. Dan Campbell isn't really, a scheme kind of guy. So it'll be interesting to see how he replaces them. A lot of people have been like, oh, is this going to be a case of like Nick Sirianni, where, Sirianni lost his two coordinators after that Super Bowl run, and ever since the team hasn't necessarily looked the same, even though they're in the championship game again. But Sirianni's not a scheme guy. Whereas, like, okay, let's, say Andy Reid loses his coordinators. He's fine because he's a scheme guy. He's got, it's his offensive scheme. It's not the offensive coordinator scheme. So it'll be interesting to see what Detroit's going to do to keep their window open. I think their window still is open. Just because I think that they have everything. They still have so many weapons, but I just wonder how much this is going to hurt the confidence of Jared Goff. He was playing fantastic, and he had obviously the 5-interception game against the Texans earlier this season, but it's really hard to trust him to be able to win the big one when he constantly performs like this.
Mm-hmm.
So the question Detroit really needs to ask themselves is Jared Goff really the guy? Because he's got a track record of not being able to perform in the big games. And there's a reason why McVay moved on from him. And they really got to ask themselves that question.
Yeah, I think you brought up good points there. But to go back to the Commanders too, in this 45-31 victory over the Lions, just again, their motto is anybody, anywhere, anytime. Why not the Commanders? At this point, why not? And again,
because chances are you're facing us in the Super Bowl if you get there, baby.
But still, why not? Why not?
I mean, why not? You're right. Why not? Why not just go out there and win this game? Why not? Why not the Commanders? I mean, you guys have so many weapons. You got a rookie QB who's playing great. Defense is doing enough to make the plays when needed. Sure, they're not going to shut down an offense, but they're going to make the stops when they need to. Here's my question for you, Kirby, because I want to know, how rowdy did you get when you knew they were going to win?
Well, okay, so I was actually kind of pissed, and I'll tell you why. Because when was it? I'm trying to figure out.
Because what did I do?
So it was what? I believe there were 5 minutes left, and you texted at 10:54. That's Game Boys. Congrats, Kirby. I'm like, dude.
Yep.
I'm like, nah, we're not checking this text. 5 minutes left. I'm like, there's still a lot of game left. And, the Lions are driving down, and, they don't have any time out.
I got to feel for these things, man. Just trust me. I got to feel for when game is called.
Still, but I texted after we're going the AFC Championship game. I can't believe it. So with that, I was kind of upset they were driving down the field. I'm like, can we just get an interception, close it out, this and that, which happened.
And then
I'm just glad I was sitting on my recliner. I don't know. It was incredible.
Were you watching with your parents?
Yes, my parents were here too. So we had the our other pick'em. We have another pick'em, me and a group of buddies, and every year we go out to B-dubs and celebrate, hand out the trophy, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, I ain't trying to be here for the Commanders game. I'm really not. I'll be honest. And apparently most of them were, and I'm like, how's that atmosphere at B-dubs? Whatnot. And I mean, not to mention I had great food. The burger did tear me up a little bit. I had the bacon mac and cheese burger, and what really tore me up about it, I had no clue there were jalapenos on it. I ate jalapenos.
Oh my God, bro!
I'm like, why is this burger so hot? And I was like, oh no.
Jalapenos is spicy to you? Man, I really have a high tolerance because jalapenos are nothing to me.
No,
but here's the thing. So I watched the game. At least I watched the first 3 quarters. I watched at Chili's over here in Martinsburg, and it was a great atmosphere in there. So I was like, oh, okay. I was like, all right, I see it.
Yeah, but I went home and watched the whole game. I got a new recliner in the Studio K down here. You've been down here, but I have a recliner I like to sit in, and I'm like, I like watching the game. I just like watching it in the basement, the Studio K.
I feel it. Why I like watching in the bunker.
I wasn't really about staying to watch the game at B-dubs, But
no, I mean, because it's because it's your team. Because I'm the same way, right? So like the Chiefs-Texans game, I was like, there's no way I'm watching this anywhere else. Like I'm watching this here at home by myself in the bunker. I don't want anybody around me because if this goes wrong, which I didn't think it was going to go wrong, but in case it goes wrong, I don't want to be around anybody. Like I don't want to hear people celebrating that they lost. I don't want to hear people celebrating that the Texans are doing something. I don't want to hear any of that. So I'm going to just sit here at home, and then that way I can be as rowdy as I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally understand why you were like, I don't want to watch this here. I want to watch this at home in peace. In case it goes bad, I don't want people laughing in my face that my team lost.
And apparently B-dubs was rocking over there. I was texting them like, what's the atmosphere like there? They stayed for most of the game, left midway through the third quarter. And I'm just glad I'm here. And I was just, I was pacing back and forth a lot. I'm like, can you believe it? And
Yep.
I sort of went electric when Quan Martin had that pick six. I'm like, now we're cooking. Something's happening. We're up by 2 scores and just keep it going. And they got it done. And it was just great to see. But again, with this game, the question that I believe we had last year too, Carlos, is the fact that if you're the number 1 seed, that's not always the best thing going into the playoffs. Because
No, it definitely
rest.
can't be.
Mm-hmm.
But for Detroit, this wasn't a matter of rust. It was a matter of they just didn't have the people to make the stops that needed to. Their defense is decimated.
Yep.
Their offense was keeping pace, and then Jared Goff started making mistakes, and then their defense couldn't stop you guys. So, I mean, again, think about it. You only punted once. There was no turnovers. So, at the end of the day, it's just the Detroit just could not overcome those massive injuries that they suffered throughout the season on defense. And Jared Goff became Jared Goff and started trying to push the ball too much and got burned for it. And Shannon Sharp said it about the the Ravens Bills game, about Lamar Jackson's turnovers, is that turnovers in the playoffs are worth double than they are in the regular season, because you're stealing a possession. And in a 1-game series like we do in the NFL, it means everything. Every possession matters. And this isn't the regular season. This isn't the regular season where it's like, oh, people aren't necessarily going all out. This is do or die at this point. So every possession matters. Every possession is an opportunity to score and to pad your lead. And Detroit just gave it up willy-nilly, over and over again. And I mean, to your guys' benefit, so in terms of the whole 1 seed argument, I don't think that applies here, because they just had a week off. That's it. They didn't do what Kansas City did, where we took 3 weeks off. Detroit had to play that last game of the season against Minnesota. So they've essentially already had a playoff game. Then they took a week off, and then they came back. It's just you guys have been slowly ascending and had already understood or had already gotten those playoff nerves off of you, because you guys already played against Tampa Bay. This was Detroit's introduction. So they played a little tighter. They played a little more, conservative a little bit, because you don't want to, in the playoffs, you just don't want to make a mistake. And they talked about this during the Chiefs game, is possibly a reason why the Chiefs were maybe not firing on all cylinders, because there's a little nerves, and there's just tight. They were just tight. And then as the game wore on, they got looser, and then eventually they took over. Detroit never got that, because you guys were able to just continue going, and they weren't able to keep pace with it. And eventually you guys just were out of sight, and they couldn't catch up.
Yeah, but all the credit to Detroit, I feel for them, because again, a 15-win team, what Dan Campbell was able to do with that franchise, and the Commanders just making a statement. That was just, his press conference, very emotional, obviously. So, but again, the Washington Commanders, anybody, anytime, any place, that is their motto. Why not the Washington Commanders? They're playing with house money, 45-31. I can't believe it. They're playing in an NFC Championship game. And again,
you have a vested interest in this far.
This goes to show you how crazy the NFC is in comparison to how predictable the AFC is.
Well,
if that makes sense.
Because the NFC has has good teams with good quarterbacks, whereas the AFC has great quarterbacks and a handful of good teams. So you pretty much know who's going to be in the mix all the time.
But the NFC, you never know.
The NFC is usually, you have your usual suspects: Detroit, Philly, but then from there, it's just like it's anybody's game.
Absolutely, but it's fun. I'm sure you enjoyed it too, Carlos. Just watching that, and you're like, they're about to upset Detroit, and made it happen.
It was nuts. I was actually I was happily surprised because despite my beef, obviously my kind of hatred for the Commanders at the same time, and your fan base is insufferable. But at the same time, I do enjoy seeing, a fan base be happy and finally get to taste the success. And it does, you are finally getting to experience this for the first time ever, seeing the Commanders get this far and just knowing what that feels, because I've been spoiled. Kansas City's been to the AFC Championship game for the past 7 years.
Yeah.
It's not, it's going to be a regular Sunday for me, but for you, this is the first time ever. So it'll be a lot of fun for you. I did enjoy the upset. I did enjoy it.
I'm just hoping with that win to send the Commanders to the NFC Championship game. The word poverty franchise will be out of your vocabulary when referring to the.
Well, we already have we have a new poverty franchise. So,
what?
We have a new poverty franchise.
Oh yeah,
it's the Dallas Cowboys.
Man, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I seriously wouldn't. Because
no, Kirby, look, as a former fan, I can say it. They are a poverty franchise. So long as Jerry Jones is breathing, this team is never going to do anything. They're poorly run now. He's old, senile. He doesn't know how to do this anymore. I hate to make this about the Cowboys, but in all honesty, the poverty franchise is probably the Jets, but
I would say the Jets or the Panthers, but Dallas.
Well, the Panthers have have optimism for next season because of the way Bryce Young has came on at the end of the year. Dallas, I don't see where they have no coaching staff right now. The prospects of the coaches out there are not great, and it's Jerry Jones leading the charge. And it's going to be about Jerry Jones. It's not going to be Jerry Jones isn't going anywhere. He's going to make terrible decisions because the game has passed him by, and until he's 6 feet under. There's just no hope for this team.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, to be completely honest, the Dallas Cowboys need some sort of outside individual to make decisions that are best for the football team. And with Jerry Jones leading the charge, and respect to Jerry Jones too, because of what he's given this franchise. Back in the day, very good owner, still in charge. But still, there comes a time where you get old enough and you got to give the reins to somebody else. I think that's the situation the Dallas Cowboys are in now. Will they listen to me? Probably not. But, there's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on.
Yep. Washington Commanders. 45-31, and they are moving on to the NFC Championship game. We're going to come back with much more of the Kirby on Sports podcast, talk about the Sunday slate of NFC and AFC divisional playoff action coming your way next.
Hey there, Kirby on Sports podcast fans. Mark Francis with Icon Real Estate here for you. Remember, if you have any real estate needs, buying or selling, I'm your guy. I would love to help you out. And you can also find me on my own personal podcast, Iconic Talk, where you get a chance to learn about the local real estate market and why Winchester is an amazing place to live. Reach out to me anytime, 540-247-1527, and find Iconic Talk anywhere you get your podcasts.
You may have heard the saying, it's not if your home will get termites, it's when. At Barrett Pest and Termite Services, we're doing our best to refute that saying one home at a time. Our thorough inspections and treatments are designed to keep your home or business termite-free. Termites cause $5 billion in damages every year. A preemptive inspection is one of the best ways to keep that from happening to you. Because once you see evidence of termites with the naked eye, you can be sure they've already been at work for some time. Put a stop to termites and the damage they do by calling Barrett Pest and Termite Services 540-340-3922. Barrett Pest and Termite Services 540-340-3922.
And welcoming you back to episode 223 of the Kirby on Sports podcast with the Swiss Army knife Carlos Martinez. I am Josh Kirby. Getting into our next matchup, the Philadelphia Eagles defeat the LA Rams in Philly, sending the Eagles to the NFC Championship game, facing off against NFC East rival, the Washington Commanders. I tell you, Carlos, a good snow football game is always fun to watch.
No, it's not. It's not fun to watch. I don't know why. I don't know why you and Dan glorified it on Facebook. Oh, we love snow football. Snow football is so fun. It just feels right. No, this thing was freaking terrible. It was awful. I don't like snow games. I don't. Okay, the ball is slick. The field sucks. Granted, I do enjoy the whole, it gives the other team an advantage part of the game. But at the same time, it's just like you don't actually get to see who would actually win, straight up, because then it's the whole advantage thing. Am I one of those people advocating that every team should be playing in a dome? The weather shouldn't be affecting the game? No, absolutely not. I believe weather should be affecting, these games. But I am of the opinion that I hate snow games and I will never be a fan of snow games. And people that glorify snow games are just weird.
But
I said what I said.
So with that, I mean, this game was, the Rams kept it close. Eagles, Saquon Barkley, just a different animal, man. Saquon Barkley just going out, doing what he does best. Hey, Giants fans, how you feeling now? Just curious, how are you all feeling?
The fact that they kept that GM is wild to me still.
Mm-hmm. Unreal. I did hear that Daniel Jones was in Saquon Barkley's personal suite cheering him on. So if that's the case, some Giants players going to support their former teammate, that's something too that I really like about that scenario, although Saquon did leave the Giants for Philly. But looking at this game, Jalen Hurts.
Really quick, from everything that I've heard is that Saquon was a big locker room guy and everybody loved him. He didn't want to leave. It's just New York didn't want to pay to keep him. So there you go.
So with that, Saquon Barkley, definitely an impact in the game, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jalen Hurts seemed to look kind of iffy towards the end. I know that he got bent up on a sack or something, but looking at Jalen Hurts, I think he'll play next week. I don't think there's any question, but still looking at his status, does that raise concerns in your mind?
Yes, it does, because a limited Jalen Hurts is not the same as a fully healthy Jalen Hurts. We saw how a knee injury really affected him last season, especially towards the end. And that is, it was another knee injury, for this game. He had to put a brace on it before he came back out. Do I think he's going to miss this game? Absolutely not. It's the NFC Championship game. He's not going to miss it. But is he going to be 100% healthy? No, which I think is an advantage to you guys going into that game. I agree. He did not necessarily look the best, but he hasn't looked very sharp here in these playoffs. But ultimately, when you have that ace in the hole, as people would say, in Saquon Barkley, it's okay that he's not necessarily, getting all these, he's not putting up big stats is what I'm trying to say. No, yes, it's concerning. No, I don't think it's going to keep him out of this game.
Yeah. So the Rams, on the other hand, they kept it close, but just when the big plays were needed, that last drive to try to go down and score was not able to happen for the Rams. So they go home, no shot at the NFC Championship game, obviously, with the loss. But, I mean, I can't really, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't really put my finger on it, but yeah, I'm sorry. What am I thinking? I'm on a tangent here, but the Rams defense, despite the loss, they looked pretty good. They
did. They looked pretty. They looked very
creating
solid.
a lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts, on Philly's O-line. When you look at the game this upcoming weekend, could the amount of pressure, this could be dumb for me saying this, but could the amount of pressure that LA put on Philly's O-line be a factor in terms of how Washington game plans come this Sunday?
But I think in terms of that, I think another thing you have to factor in was the field conditions were not the best for this past Sunday.
That's
Whereas
true as well.
as far as I'm concerned, it's not going to be the same going into this Sunday. So I don't necessarily know. You got to think the linemen just maybe didn't have, weren't confident about their footing. So they just didn't necessarily do a great job of blocking. And that's why more pressure was able to come through. You just don't know. I don't know. I mean, this is one of the best offensive lines in the league. So I don't know how much you can put on them allowing more pressures in a snow game than you can if the field was completely fine. The other thing that you have to factor in too is Jalen Hurts was holding onto that ball for way too long.
Absolutely.
And in terms of that safety, he should have found a way to get rid of that. There was a couple sacks where he just went straight down. He didn't even try to do anything. So there's a lot of variables that happen as to why the Rams were so successful in putting pressure on Jalen Hurts. But you guys played this team twice already this year. If anybody knows how to blitz this team and what makes the Eagles tick, it's going to be the Commanders.
Yeah. What else was I going to add? Just the field conditions obviously there for that, but I mean, the Rams obviously another factor were the turnovers. Philly didn't have a turnover, the Rams had a couple. That was another key factor, I believe, in my mind.
It was a key factor in every playoff game this week. The team that turned the ball over
across the board. You're right.
Across the board. And the team that didn't won the game. That was literally the theme of divisional weekend, turnovers. That was literally it.
Yep. You protect the football. You got to be smart in the playoffs, protect the football. You have a good shot, as the stats were saying throughout the course of this weekend too. But I mean, Philly just doing what they do best. And Saquon Barkley, he has to be contained somehow, some way. And the Rams didn't really seem to have an answer because they're just putting everything in the box and then Saquon's getting out of it. But you bring some guys back and Saquon with his moves, just getting stuff done left and right.
Yeah, Saquon was unstoppable in this game, and it was honestly Philly's saving grace because had they just had to rely on Jalen Hurts, it wasn't going to be enough. Luckily, they had Saquon Barkley, and he was able to just dominate this game. I mean, he had, I believe, I think he had around 200, right? Yards rushing.
Yeah. What was it? It was 205.
Yeah, 205. So an absolutely epic game by him, and it was the deciding factor. What I will say about the Rams is I think their window is still open. Whether I believe if they bring Matthew Stafford back, I think they'll be okay. I think he still has enough in him to make maybe another run. And this year they actually have draft picks, so it'll be huge for them to building their team. And they're pretty much all completely out of their whole cap hell situation that they've been in for the past few seasons because of going all in that 1 year to win the Super Bowl. So there's still upside with this team, and they still have Sean McVay. So I believe that they still have a chance to win this. And they honestly should have won this game. In my opinion, they had the opportunity to. It's just at the end of the day, they couldn't make the plays. And then a mistake up front where a lineman goes the wrong way and lets Jalen Carter come in untouched, that's going to cost you. But I still think that the Rams, I thought that the Rams honestly deserved to beat the Eagles, but at the end of the day, again, it's not about the best team doesn't always win, which we'll talk about in the next game. The best team doesn't always win. But then that's will always be because they just didn't make the plays to do it. And, with all those turnovers that the Rams had, in the middle of the second half, it ultimately costed them. But at the end of the day, they were still in it and they were driving and they could have gotten the win, but they just couldn't make the plays to finish it off.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have much to add besides just the fact Saquon Barkley just rushing, and he is a force for this Philadelphia Eagles team. And just you gotta watch Jalen Hurts too, just to see what he's looking like come next week. He'll obviously play, like you mentioned, but still, it's going to be very interesting. The Rams starting off the season not so hot, coming back and making it into a divisional playoff. That was pretty huge to see as well.
Yeah. I mean, again, you got to remember that they didn't start the season out healthy. They had a lot of injuries to deal with coming in, but you saw once they got everybody back, they started rolling. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes going into next season, because as far as it looks, they have most of their people healthy going into the offseason. Hopefully they remain healthy through the offseason and through training camp and preseason, and we'll see what damage they can really do coming into the season healthy.
Absolutely. So with that, the Eagles defeating the Rams 28-22. We'll take another quick break, and when we return, we will bring you the next matchup. Very exciting matchup. The Ravens and the Bills from Buffalo. We'll be right back.
It's Jason, General Manager at Shenandoah Music, here to tell you all about...
Jay, what are you doing here?
Well, Matt, I'm trying to tell the people about our selection of guitars, basses, keyboards, drum sets.
I know that, but I always do the radio spots.
You get to have all the fun. I want to tell everyone about our huge selection, unbeatable prices, unmatched service, and in-depth knowledge.
Jay, I really don't think now is the time to discuss.
So remember, folks, when you think music, think Shenandoah Music in Winchester.
That's my line.
The Cider House is now open on East Piccadilly Street in downtown Winchester. The Cider House is open starting at noon Wednesday to Sunday. Stop in for a wide variety of ciders on draft, as well as 4 Virginia beers, wine, and ready-to-drink canned cocktails. Don't miss our lunch specials featuring our house salad. We also have dinner specials too. Stop in today at the Cider House, located on Piccadilly Street in downtown Winchester.
We are back.
We will now like to take a moment in a moment of silence to remember those poor Ravens. Kirby, will you please join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. That one was for you, Dan.
Dan's gonna love going back to watch that.
Oh, he's gonna love hearing this one.
Oh my!
All right, bring it in.
Hey, I gotta break it to you. Jaden Daniels made it further than Lamar this year. How about
Jesus
it? No, probably doesn't mean anything, but just that.
Well, look, I'm glad that we discussed this before the show, so I know you're joking. So.
But
I know you're trolling here, but go on.
The Buffalo Bills defeat the Baltimore Ravens 27-25, and the factor in this game, turnovers and missed 2-point conversions. And the Buffalo Bills capitalized, doing what they do best. Josh Allen, 16 for 22. Cook on the ground, 67 yards. I mean, not the best offensive performance, but because Allen obviously didn't throw for a touchdown there, but they did what they did best, and the Buffalo Bills.
He didn't throw for a touchdown, but he ran in for 2 touchdowns, correct?
Yeah, he didn't throw any, but he ran in for 2. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Allen on the ground looked incredible. He had 20 yards,
lethal,
2 rushing touchdowns, and the Buffalo Bills doing what they need to do to get the victory. It was a close game, and this game could have went either way if Baltimore would have capitalized on the 2-point conversions and not put the ball on the ground. And Lamar threw an interception too as well. I did not see that because I was out shoveling because of the amount of snow that dumped on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a tough one for the Ravens because ultimately I still leave this game thinking that Baltimore was the better team. But like I said in the last segment, sometimes the best team doesn't win. I mean, I've heard so many breakdowns of this game of, at the end of the day, those turnovers costed them gave Buffalo 10 points. They only lost by 2. So those turnovers don't happen. Baltimore wins comfortably. And I think that's the heartbreaking part about this for Ravens fans and for the Ravens themselves is that they once again costed themselves this game. And this time, at least you could definitely say this time it wasn't all on Lamar, but Lamar did contribute to what happened by fumbling and by throwing the interception. The interception looked like it was a miscommunication. I think he thought that the receiver was going to continue running down the field, and he ended up cutting the route short. And so Lamar sailed it, and it was a pick. The fumble was Lamar just not tucking the ball in and kind of making a very weird fumble that we don't normally see from Lamar. I don't know. I really don't know where the Ravens go from here. Luckily, they do have Derrick Henry under contract for another year, so they're going to be able to run this back. And you do also have to factor in that they didn't have Zay Flowers. And one thing for sure is that, like, look, when the moment needed him, Lamar did lead them down on an 88-yard drive to go score the potential game-tying touchdown. It's just then, things happen, and he put the ball perfectly there for Mark Andrews. It was a little behind him, but Andrews should have caught that. That should have been him. And the earlier 2-point conversion, it was batted down at the line, so there's really no chance of getting that one. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know where the Ravens go from here. This was definitely devastating. It just feeds more into the whole, is this only a good regular season team and they can't perform in the playoffs? They played well against Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh, it's not like they were playing great. But once they step up to the big boys of Kansas City or Buffalo, so far Baltimore hasn't been able to overcome them. And if Lamar wants to be held, to that level, which we all know he's there, he's in that team. Well, Mahomes is in his own tier, but he's in the tier with Allen and Burrow. He's got to, they need to stop going away from what they do best. And that's what they did in the first half again. They went away from being a run team. And that is the most frustrating thing about Baltimore that I know Dan is always frustrated about, and something that we talked about all year post the AFC Championship game last year when Baltimore tried to be a passing team instead of a running team against Kansas City is they always in the big games, they try to be the thing that they're not. And we do not understand why, because they are a running team first. And for some reason, in the first half, they didn't run it. Second half, they finally got the message and were like, we're going to go back to being us. And what happened? They completely outclassed the Bills for the most part in that second half. But it just wasn't enough at that point. At that point, they were too far down. So I don't know where they go from here. I really don't. In a way, you kind of wish they would have gotten blown out, because then you could make the case, fire John Harbaugh, bring somebody else in. It's clear he just doesn't have what it takes to push his team to the next level. But because they lost on a drop 2-point conversion, which granted, nobody knew if that was going to be it. There was still 1:30 left on the clock. So Josh Allen easily could have put his cape on and led the team down and get a game-winning field goal. But at the end of the day, they still only lost by 2 points. So it's like, what do you do? I don't know what you do. I don't know if maybe having Zay Flowers in this game was going to make a difference. But ultimately, I left this game still thinking that Baltimore was the better team. It's just Buffalo has Josh Allen, man. And Josh Allen he's playing out of his mind right now and on a different level. And that defense was opportunistic. There were a few guys, there's 3 guys back from injury that didn't play in that week 4 game that clearly made the difference. Matt Milano being the main one, doing a great job of containing Lamar Jackson. But Baltimore is going to, again, be going into this offseason with the question of what if, was this our time? Was last year really the best chance? And we messed it up by not, beating the Chiefs at their most vulnerable. Because another point that gets brought up is like, hey, like the Chiefs aren't going anywhere. The Bills aren't going anywhere either. And you got to think, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow are going to get it going again. So there's going to be another challenge there. There's a lot of questions that are going to be going on in Baltimore. And and like I've been saying, I just don't know where they go from here.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you because Baltimore looks good. They go on a roll and then they have a game like this. And I really don't have the words that come to me that say Baltimore needs this or that. I think again, I'm just an outsider looking in. I think a deep review from the front office is needed to figure out what needs to be done in order to take this team back to the top, which is a Super Bowl appearance, getting back to where they were when they won against San Francisco. They have a capable quarterback in Lamar Jackson who can get things done. And despite the loss, I still think Lamar has a pretty good shot of winning MVP. It could be close.
But this game was not going to, the MVP votes are already in. This game had nothing to do, was not going to sway MVP voters either way.
Oh, that's right. That all gets done at the end of the regular season. That's right.
Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make is, I guess the question that everybody kind of needs to ask right now is, yes, in the biggest moment, Lamar finally responded. But when you look at his past, he has not. Is he really that guy that in the playoffs you can rely on? Because there are certain people that can flip it on in the playoffs. And you just look at the most previous quarterback that Baltimore had, Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco wasn't the best quarterback in the regular season, but in the playoffs, he turned it on, and it led them to win that Super Bowl in 2012. So what does Lamar have to do to get this mental hurdle off of him so that he can perform the way he does in the regular season when he lights it up and plays an absolutely perfect game? What does he need to do to translate that into these big games against a Buffalo or a Kansas City or a Cincinnati? Because doing this against Pittsburgh, that's not impressive. Pittsburgh's not the same Pittsburgh that we used to know, at least not in its current form. So that game was not necessarily, we were hoping that maybe that was a tell that, hey, he finally got over this hurdle. He had a complete game last week that he played well. Can this translate on the road in Buffalo? And it didn't. He played one good half, but at that point it was too late. You were already down by too much. And you guys got a little aggressive with it and left, had they kicked the extra point, they would have been fine. All they would need was just the extra point on that last drive, to tie it. but they went for the 2 because they wanted to go for, the tie at that point, which I understand why they did it, but they left points on the field.
Absolutely.
I don't know, man. I really do not know what they do. I don't know what Lamar needs to do, but something needs to be done here because Lamar's, at this point, he's, I believe, 28. Like he's got to get something going here, man, because like you can't wait forever, on this. The window is every year is slowly closing. Tom Brady believes it closes after every year and then reopens at the beginning of the year. Anybody can get in, i.e., look at you guys, the Commanders. You guys, nobody thought your guys' window was open, and here you are in the NFC Championship game. But when you have somebody like Lamar Jackson, like you have to he has to find a way to capitalize it on when he can. And honestly, last year was that year that they should have capitalized. Again, the Chiefs were on a down year and they couldn't get it done. You had the AFC Championship game in your house and still wasn't enough. And this year was going to be a little tougher, but you guys were playing great football. The Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson 1-2 hit, was everything that could have beaten Buffalo, and they shied away from it in the first half, and it costed them, and it put them in a deficit that ultimately was too much to overcome. So that's where I'm at with Baltimore. I just don't really know what they're going to do.
And for Buffalo, fate has it with the loss. It's another rematch. Mahomes and Josh Allen, another chapter in the storied rivalry of the Chiefs and the Bills.
Yeah. This is the modern day Brady Manning. This is going to pull in big numbers. It's the night game too for championship weekend, which it's just more special when it's at night at Arrowhead. And it's the Bills and the Chiefs. It just is. It's going to be a tough game. We'll get into it more during the pick'ems, but yeah, another matchup for sure between these two guys.
Should be a shootout from the way I see it.
I don't know, man. That's just not how the Chiefs have played. The Chiefs aren't. We don't do shootouts anymore. It's not. We don't play like a shootout team anymore, and neither does Buffalo.
Yeah. You never know, though. It is the playoffs. It is the AFC Championship.
I don't know. That's just the trend. That's just not how it's going to go. That Kansas City defense is too good for that to be a shootout.
Yeah, but I don't have anything more to add with this Buffalo Bills 27-25 victory over Baltimore. Is there anything I'm missing here?
No. It's heartbreaking for Dan. He didn't get to make it to the big boys table like you and me did. Crazy. Turns out we're not going to have the three-man booth civil war again between me and Dan like we did last year in the championship game. My heart goes out to Dan. He was definitely having a hard time last night. He was hurt, heartbroken. Again, as a person who's experienced that with the Dallas Cowboys, I know exactly where he's coming from, man. It sucks. It's a crappy feeling thinking that, your team is finally going to do something, and then they just go back and just wet the bed like they always do.
Yeah, it's very tough indeed where Baltimore goes from here. I'm not really sure, but again, a lot of thought, a lot of figuring out what to do come the offseason. With that, we're jumping straight in to the Kirby on Sports PickEm in previewing the championship weekend, NFC and AFC title games. Are you ready, Carlos?
Yep.
Let's pull it up. The pickups are here.
The pick'ems and a new picture for your rating, defending, two-time pick'ems champion. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the conference championship weekend for the pick'ems. Brought to you by Anthony's Pizza, home of the Warrior. We will, of course, be just picking the two games, Buffalo, Kansas City, and Washington, Philadelphia. Oh, I had it. I had it. I had it. Hold on. Let me pull up the history here. Really quick. Last year, at this point of the season, we were Dan was in first place with the same record he has currently at 79-39. Good enough for first place at this point. Last year, he has moved into last place. Actually, I'm totally doing this wrong. Let me go through the standings, because Josh Kirby is now tied for first place with your boy. And Kirby, you're not paying attention here. You should be excited. You're battling for first place. It happened. The Commanders saved you. They got you. So now you're fighting for the title here. Essentially, you are. Because the winner of the Commanders-Eagles game will have either you and me with a 1-game advantage going into the Super Bowl. So at worst, at best, you win straight up during the Super Bowl. At worst, you tie. There is no loss. So with that being said, me and Kirby are tied for first at 80-38, and Dan is in last place, in the Kirby zone, or as he called it, the Dembski zone. But at 79-39. Some history, like I said, Dan last year was in first place with that same exact record at 79-39. I was in second place with a 78-40 record, so a 2-game improvement for me. And once again, Josh Kirby, the picker of the year, most improved picker of the year, was at 68-50 last year, a 12-game swing for him. With that being said, some new rules or some other rules are implemented in this. I don't know what's going on here. Some new rules are implemented. We are picking the games and also predicting the final score. Now, this is by the Price is Right rules, so you can't go over. You have to hit the under. Actually, no, you have to guess it completely right. That's going to be for the Super Bowl if there's a case of we have a tiebreaker to do. No. So for the championship game, if you guess the score correctly, that will add another point to your win record. I was very close last year for the Super Bowl. I was off by like a point on each side. And I was like, how did I mess this one up? But so with that being said, I will go first as your, two-time Pick'em's champion, fighting for my life for this third one as always, somehow, some way. But this time I got a new opponent in Josh Kirby. But a win here gets me pretty much almost guarantees me the title going into the Super Bowl weekend. So with that being said, I will take the Kansas City Chiefs over the Buffalo Bill as I'm contractually obligated, and because I would pick them anyways. You can't bet against Mahomes. And I believe the score will be 24-21. Anybody thinking that this is going to be a shootout, I don't believe has really watched the Kansas City Chiefs this year. They don't do shootouts. We haven't scored more than 30 points all year. And I don't believe that's going to change here. This is a defensive-led team. This offense hopefully can get more going. We can get these other receivers involved in DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown, Arrowhead's going to be rocking, but I'm going to go with 24-21. I think it's going to come down to the end as it always does between these two teams, but ultimately I think Kansas City is going to have just that little edge as they always do in the playoffs and get the dub over Buffalo. I went back and forth on this one, Kirby, but ultimately I'm going for the win, baby. And I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles over the Washington Commanders, 28-24. I just think ultimately when it's going to come down to it, Philly has been here before. Washington has not. And I believe that they're going to be poised, and they also have Saquon Barkley. And despite injured Jalen Hurts, I believe he's going to do enough to get the victory. It's going to be a tight one. It's going to be a close one. But I think the Eagles edge it out. So with that, I would normally throw it to Dan, but Dan isn't here. So I will go over his picks real quick. Even though technically in the seeding chart, it goes you next, but we'll just get Dan's pick out of the way. Dan is going with the Kansas City Chiefs over the Buffalo Bills as well. He is picked the scoreline of 31-24. And then he's taking the Eagles over the Commanders. He went back and forth on this also because he originally told me Commanders, and then he was like, no, wait, never mind. I changed my pick. I want the Eagles.
You should have taken his first pick. You should have done that.
No. I couldn't. He still had time. He was still within the window of making his picks.
No, I'm just kidding.
So he went 31-28 Philly. Mostly because he wants to beat you. Well, he doesn't want to beat you because technically speaking, if he wins, he's going to tie you, and it's going to be you guys battling out for second. Actually, if some things happen, there's a possibility we finish the Super Bowl all tied up. So that'll be interesting. Then I'll implement the Price is Right rules on predicting the final score and everything, and that's how we'll determine who the winner is. But with that being said, we will now throw it over, I will now throw it over to the founder and CEO, Josh Kirby, and host.
So my picks are simple. The Kansas City Chiefs, I'm picking them because I still can't bet against Kansas City. I won't until they give me a reason to bet against the Chiefs. It's plain and simple. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, they get beat, they get battered a little bit, but they still find a way to win games. And we've seen that throughout the course of the NFL regular season. I'm picking 28-17. I think the Bills have a turnover that comes costly, and the Chiefs get the victory. I'm contractually obligated to pick the Washington Commanders, but ask me why I'm picking the Washington Commanders.
Why are you picking the Washington Commanders?
Because why not? Why not the Washington Commanders? Anybody, anytime, any place. The Washington Commanders are playing with house money in the biggest game in the 35 years since the last time they've been here. 35 some odd years since 1991. They're playing in the biggest game. Nobody expected the Washington Commanders to be here. Why not them? Why not an NFC East division matchup, a foe they know all too well, to decide who goes to the Super Bowl? The Washington Commanders, I'm choosing 34-21 because why? Why not? Why not? Why not the Washington Commanders? They're playing with house money. Casino hit big in Tampa. Go up to Detroit.
God, not this again.
Still going.
There's no casino in Tampa. This analogy doesn't make sense. Let it die.
Those are my picks. The Chiefs and
Those
the
are
Commanders.
your picks. And here are my scenarios. Like I said, the scenarios are quite simple. It's going to come down to Commanders Eagles. If the Commanders pull off this magical run and get to the Super Bowl, Josh Kirby will be in sole possession of first place and will be in basically game point of this pick'ems. He will literally just have to get the Super Bowl pick right. If he loses, he will then be battling it out to remain in second place and possibly tie, have a either two-way or a three-way tie for the Super Bowl. In which case we will have to implement some other rule to determine who the winner of the pick'ems is. But this has been the most competitive Kirby on Sports pick'ems we've ever had because all three of us are actually in it this year. So, with that being said, Kirby, May the best team win.
Yes, that is true. May the best team win. That is the pick'em for the conference championship. A lot of fun. And with that, we now wait. You hear our analysis. You hear our expert advice. Now we wait for Sunday. One of the best weekends in football.
No, it's one of the saddest. It's one of the saddest because it's just 2 games and then
That
one
is
game
true.
and then we're done. And then
We're done.
and then what? We go on the shelf again.
MLB, Washington Nationals, baby. Number one
we're
pick in
not
the draft.
We are not doing baseball.
Oh, yeah. Baseball, baby.
No, we are not
And
doing
watching
baseball.
Ovechkin break Gretzky's record.
Hopefully we see that.
Would you look at that, ladies and gentlemen, as we are recording, Notre Dame is in the red zone. And they're in
they
for
just
a
scored.
touchdown. How about
Yeah,
that? How about that? So, national championship just underway. So that's a great time to wrap up episode 223 of the Kirby on Sports podcast. Huge thanks to PM Plus Reserves, Shenandoah Primitives, Transformative Alignment Group, Barrett, Pest, and Termite Services, Mark Francis with Icon Real Estate, Shenandoah Music, Mark Lynch with Guild Mortgage, the Cider House, and the official energy drink of the Kirby on Sports podcast, Don't Sleep Energy. Use promo code KOS Podcast for 12% off your order every single time. You can find us on all social media platforms, all streaming platforms, and www.kirbyonsports.com. For the Swiss Army knife, Carlos Martinez. I am Josh Kirby. Always remember to create greatness, and we will catch you next week for a breakdown of the AFC and NFC Championship games and get you set for the Super Bowl. Until next time, thank you very much for tuning in, and we will catch you next week.
Go